Jellyfish, jellyfish in a dish. How many jellyfish do you wish? It's your boy, the Black Anglo Saxon, and we back again today. Pharrell Williams, unfortunately, man, what can I say? People make comments, people, say stuff that they probably shouldn't, and unfortunately, we gotta be here. We gotta have a conversation about it. So, your boy, he was on, I seen it on Auto Dialogue. He was at this little press conference, presser, having a conversation about what it sounds like was DEI. But we gonna get into it because I really wanna actually break down how this is wrong and all of this is bad practice. So, here we go.
As we look at what's going on in the current political climate, I'm just saying to want to turn by y'all, I hate politics. Like inspires them. It's a magic trick that it's not real. I don't believe in either side, because I think when you take a side, you are inadvertently.
So first things first, politics is absolutely real. The thing about and the issue that I got with that, and we're gonna talk about that and get into that. People love to say that politics ain't real because they don't necessarily understand how to engage it, how to practice it. But I want Pharrell to understand, if you are watching this video, good sir, that politics will do you even if you don't do politics, because everything that has happened for your life, as well as the ecosystems around you, is a result of the politics. So culture is politics. The money is politics. LVHM is politics. Louis Vuitton is politics. The jellyfish, how you got those collabs and all of that, is politics. And so I want you to keep that in mind when you're having these conversations. And again, I think it's a bit of ignorance, but we're gonna go ahead and let the man continue it.
Supporting division. Yeah, it's not a popular point of view, but I just got to say, think about it. The wells are drying up, and then, okay, now the diversity's off the table, now equity's off the table, now inclusion's off the table. So that makes me ask myself, okay, so how do we survive? Well, are there Black people in there tonight? Yeah. And in your heart, do you think for what it is that we do and who you are, do you think you're the best? Okay, so do you want the job because you're Black or because you're the best? Do you want someone to support your startup because you're Black or because you?
The other thing that I wanted to touch on real quick before we go ahead and continue is he's talking about and trying to have a conversation around uh, whether people want it because they Black or not, and the well drying up as a result of. And I think the question that we got to answer is that, what well are you talking about? As well as, if it's drying up, then why would it be advantageous or strategic for us to operate and move in a way that doesn't allow us to basically extract everything that we can from, whether it be institutions like Louis Vuitton, or whether it be Capitol Hill, whether it be other subsidies, etc. Because last time I checked, these other businesses and these other companies are getting subsidies, good sir, even the ones that you're working for. So when you see all of these hits that people taking around certain goods and certain tariffs based on certain countries and how they imported and exported and all of that, that's all politics. It's what also creates winners and losers in your industry as it relates to fashion, because a person who is quote unquote Black might not be able to take that hit when it comes to the production line and where his clothes is being made or how they being made and the fabric that he's using, based on everything that has happened and transpired over the last I want to say almost a year now, or 11 months or so. So I just, again, we're gonna get into all of this, but be careful, Mr. Williams. And again, this is coming from a person who liked the music, liked the shoes, liked the fashion. He's an icon in all of those ways. But I think that what we make the mistake of doing sometimes is not understanding that certain people should stay within their particular lanes when it comes to certain conversations and discussions. So we're just going to go ahead and let them continue.
I think Now, for me, it's about us having the best ambition. That's the reason why you should support your businesses. Yes, they happen to be Dr. Brad, but it should be based on the thesis that are the best, not because we are a total shade of a skin color. That's a point of view that I have now that I'm resting on. And if diversity, equity, and inclusion never come back in style, cool. But in the meantime, I'm going to focus on being the best because I can bank on that. What's going to get you the position where, I don't want you to give me anything. I want you to panic and not let me out of the room because I'm the best.
All right. So you heard it. He want to be in the room because he the best. So when a cultural icon like Pharrell questions race-based opportunities and lumps them all together with DEI, we need to ask, what is at stake? Is he right? And if not, why does it matter politically, culturally, and economically? So, first off, Pharrell is having a conversation about DEI and conflating the terms with what should be affirmative action based on the fact that he is alluding to the fact that people are getting it based on the fact that they're black and not the best. And shout out to Yvette Carnell because she touched on this point, and I think it's a very important one, that we not confuse DEI with affirmative action. I've had this conversation many a times here that because it's necessary to parse the two. Affirmative action was birthed out of Jim Crow slavery and everything that took place in the Americas up into the moment of civil rights and thereafter, which came from Lyndon Baines Johnson as he stood on Howard University's campus and talked about what happened to the Negro and what should be repaired based on the fact that it happened specifically to the Negro, which makes Pharrell's comments super ignorant. And he's conflating it with DEI. With DEI is a basically catch all for people of color, brown, yellow, red, orange, non-binary, ableist, all of these different identities that go into being represented for the sake of being represented, not because there has been any real overall systemic uh, targeting of said specific groups. Now, do certain groups suffer as a result of their positionality and their identity? Yes, but nobody has had or nobody has dealt with America on the terms that the Negro has. I know people are going to come in here and say, what about the Irish and what about the Asian groups and what about all of this? All of those groups have strived to be white and in most cases have been successful in folding themselves into whiteness at all, right? And that's ETAL because that for those groups worked, which is why they don't necessarily associate themselves with us culturally, but extract from us economically and culturally. Because what happens over that process of conflation, we lose what these different programs are about. And so, what DEI was specifically able to do was muddy the waters in terms of what affirmative action was supposed to be in terms of a actual redress for the specifics of said specific harms and not just for the sake of identity and representation. DEI is representation. Affirmative action is going to be, yes, race based, but based on the said harms that happen specifically to a race of people. Because, again, appropriate, proper context prior to mass immigration, which was around 1967, 65 as well, you did not have a large influx of immigrants. So you were either black or white. And that's even if you were black, Caribbean, continental, and people were made to choose, which is how people talk about, all of the differences between Shirley Chisholm and Malcolm X and all of these different people who get lumped into it because they had to identify as black for what it was worth. Now, where this lacks nuance is that Pharrell must understand, as I alluded to before, that when you say, are you doing it because you black or you the best, what he doesn't understand and what he doesn't or what he does miss is the fact that people, especially our people, when you talk about ADOS, black Americans specifically, we have been the best in a lot of cases. We have been the creators. We have been the inventors. When you live in a country that can take people's intellectual property, you don't necessarily have the leverage or the power to assert yourself in a way that even if you are the best, you can be killed for being the best, let alone get selected for an actual job for being the best. So, what he has to understand is that this is the conversation that he's having is not necessarily about a matter of representation. This is a matter of actually being in a position to force people to do what is quote unquote the right thing because what was birthed out of that was the fact that people weren't getting opportunities even though they were the best. And that matters because you're at Louis Vuitton and you have people like Virgil Abloh who's the creator of Off-White, and you all are in these fashion houses, and you aren't necessarily getting a quote unquote DEI slot, it's a affirmative action slot. And what you need to understand is that you should get that slot because of the legacy in and around Louis Vuitton and how Louis Vuitton and all of these businesses with under the LVHM have been able to profit off of, in large part, the ills of our community, of the culture that they continue to perpetuate, because that's one of the other misnomers about our culture and our community specifically is that it's degenerate. And it's like, no, what happens is that you have a minority of actual quote unquote degenerate behavior that stems from, again, Pharrell, the actual creation of said issues, the actual putting people systemically in ghettos, in projects, in housing, and creating these combustions that lead us to the ability for you and people who are around you, like a quote unquote Pusha T, to basically rap about and tell stories about the actual things that happen. You don't get hip hop, the actual industry that allowed you to launch your career, to launch your status, and basically pivot into the culture and use it as a catapult to your career. You don't get that with said assault on our community as a result. So hip hop goes hand in hand with affirmative action. The problem is that you're around too many people are being forced to collapse and fold into these spaces because that is how you're having to matriculate. You can't have or probably have a honest conversation is largely in part because you are a DEI hire. And more importantly, should be an affirmative action hire. Because the problem with DEI is it watered down and what affirmative action was supposed to be. And so now we find ourselves not even having gotten the benefits of affirmative action because you all, your generation, let it turn into DEI. So it's not politics, it's a lack thereof. The fact that you didn't do politics because you quote unquote hate politics is why we are where we are. And I want to be very clear that you do politics. You just do it in a way that's beneficial only to yourself. You moving in these rooms, in these spaces, having these conversations the way that you're having them, or the very things that you're saying right now out loud in this conversation is a form of politics. It's a bad form of politics, but it's politics nonetheless. Because politics is the use of influence, power, and resources to basically create systems to perpetuate said outcomes. It's the distribution of all of those things to perpetuate said outcomes and leverage power and to maintain power. You have taken your resources, your influence, and your positionality to create and position yourself and speak quote unquote propaganda into the public ethos that reinforces a soft form of racism that you may not necessarily be aware of. Because I also did a whole show about meritocracy, and there's a book, The Trap of Meritocracy, because meritocracy does not exist, people. It does not exist. Nobody cares if you're the best. Because you also know in your world, because it works for the same in politics, government, quote unquote, that is not always the best who gets it. It's usually the person who kisses up and brown noses the most. But let's be very clear that the business that you do is politics. Business and politics go hand in hand. The deals that you all are making with Adidas, the deals that you and the likes of LeBron and all of these different people, Complex and all of these different companies, that is a form of politics. You are enriching a certain group of people. LeBron just made a deal with Hennessy. That brand then gets to perpetuate a particular cycle based on the namesake of said LeBron. The same with you and Adidas. The same with you and ice cream and all of the other endeavors that you went on. Same thing. That's politics, brother. And for policy versus society, if the narrative shifts to everyone must be just the best and race doesn't matter without recognizing structural inequities, policy will revert to everybody starts at the same line myth. Because that's what that is. And that myth undercuts generational wealth, redistribution, access debates, as well as topics you often explore in your work, right? Because also, conflation dilutes political accountability. When organizations say we don't do DEI anymore, they may be stepping back from the equity efforts while claiming we already do merit. When the whole time you have a whole cast of people who are there solely built on whether it be legacy, social capital, actual capital, so I can buy a spot, or because I know so many people, I can get the spot, or flat out power. So what you should do, Pharrell, is maybe create and establish institution for young politicos so that we can begin to have these conversations in a way that is effective. Because yes, we want to be the best. Yes, we want to be also in places because, yeah, I am who I am and I come from generational poverty because of said generational wealth and generational atrocity on the other side, right? Because what has to happen is we have to be in a space where we can acknowledge both. You have to get into a space, Mr. Williams, that you can understand that you need to clarify and be clear about the fact that you don't like DEI and how it has diluted affirmative action because it has created a space where everybody is getting subsidies that are not warranted to get those subsidies based on any said thing that has happened. because everybody did not inherit generational atrocity, generational plundering, generational and systemic targeting. Because again, a lot of these other groups are going to talk and say to you that, oh, well, we got this and we got that, and we were right there with the Black community when they were getting plundered. No, you weren't the target. You got some residual. As I always say here on this podcast, is they hated the ninja lovers too. They killed the ninja lovers too. Those whites were not the target. But because we were the target and some of them chose to help us, they also caught strays. And it has been that way ever since. Other people are catching strays. They are not the target. But you have to be able to be in a space to have the conversation in a nuanced way. Because that's what we have to do. If you're going to talk, you have to be an adult and you have to be respectful about the industry that you're talking about the systems that you're talking about. Because I'm not the person that's going to say, oh, you shouldn't have an opinion, but I am going to say that you need to be responsible with your opinion based on who you are, where you are, and what you represent. Because let it be known, you are a DEI hire, sir. You might not like that, you might not want to hear that, but you are hired because you are a Black rapper who can sell sneakers probably better than the other white guys. Because Adidas said, you know what? Everybody's on this whole thing now. Let's go ahead and give it to one of them. Not because they might like you, it's just beneficial. They get to say they are doing some social endeavor and you get to make some money. But let's not be confused, right? Let's not miss and get so caught up in the fact that you are making money that you misunderstand why you are there, that you misunderstand how you got there. Please keep that. Again, DEI is about identity overall, pure representation. Affirmative action is about structural redress based on harms to said specific group of people. Two very different things. DEI hijacked affirmative action. And because, again, you hate politics and do sloppy politics, we are where we are. And this is not hate. This is not vitriol. This is love. This is correction. This is me coming to you in peace saying, you're wrong. Absolutely 100% wrong. And to make it right, hold a panel. Invite actual people in the spaces who do groundwork every single day. Not these other highfalutin, scholars who get up here and talk the same talking points. Go outside the echo chamber that you're in and have conversations. Those are actual solutions to what you're talking about. Let's meet in the middle, because that statement is dangerous. That statement is very sloppy, and that statement carries a lot of weight because of who you are, Pharrell. So I still like the jellyfish because I like the jellyfish, not because you per se. But come on, man, we gotta do better, bro.